welcome. Today is March 6, 2020. So we're just continuing on with Chapter 9. We just learned arrays. We just talked about the initializer list, which again does three things. It declares, which means that you name something. Instantiate, which means you actually create memory, space and memory for it to be held, right? And initialize, which means you give it a starting value. So we just learned the initializer list, and again, it looks like this. And as you can see, instead of using the keyword new, as we've always done, like right down here, right, with making students and things like that. Remember, arrays are objects, so you need to use the keyword new. The only exception is when you use an initializer list. The computer is smart enough to know that you have inside of this, you have 5 items. So it will go ahead and create 5 for you. Kind of like here, this is the normal way of doing it, except with doubles. You see we put the number 10 inside there because we want 10 doubles. Here it knows that you want 5 integers because there's 5 integers there, and you called it you're creating the type int square bracket, right? So we know that we have to have integers inside there. So it's already given that it's really what it's doing. It's saying new int square bracket right here with the number 5 inside of it, and it's putting the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the first 5 boxes. Okay, so that's just a quick recap of what we were talking about today. Let's take a look at a couple of examples here. We have created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arrays. An array of doubles, an array of characters, array of Boolean values, array of strings, and an array of students. So you can make an array of any type you'd like to. And obviously we could also make an array of type integers as well, but they didn't do that down here. Okay, and see, all of them are size 10. So all of these that we've just created can hold up to 10 of each of those items. Right, so this one holds 10 doubles, 10 characters, Booleans, strings, and students. We created a temporary variable called string. Let's take a look at what's going on here. Okay, so in box number 6, with the 6th box in this array here, obviously there's a 5 in there because we start counting from 0, right? So the address is 5, but the 6th item is 3.14, which would perfectly go in there because these can hold DDD, array DDD can hold on to doubles, right? So we put a 3.14 there. And inside of CCC, which can hold characters, we put in the 6th box, we put a Z there because these are characters. Remember, characters are similar to strings, except strings you can have as many characters as you want all put together. Strings is just one character. I'm sorry, characters are just one character. The thing I do want to point out is that it's convention to use a single quote here when you want a single character. Whereas when you have a string, even if you have a single character as a string, you use double quotes, right? So that's the convention right there. Okay, so we throw a Z there. We throw a true inside this Boolean BBB. And we throw in a string, the cat sat on the mat, quote, unquote, inside here. And it's inside the 6th box. And we create a new student inside of number 5. Now there's only one new student at this point. All the other ones inside of here are completely blank. Well, not blank, it's null, right? Okay, so let's take a look at what we do. We created we put a place in memory for a new student, and we went ahead and set the name as Bill. Okay, so take a look at what they've done here. I don't want you to look over this so quickly and just be like, yeah, okay. Look what they've done. Usually, we would go ahead and say like s1.setName, right? But here, it's not s1. Here, we actually have it inside of an array, and we have multiple students. Well, right now we only have 1, but this could potentially hold up to 10 students. We want the 6th one, so we say address 5. And so in place of saying student1.setName, we're actually, because we're using arrays, it's SSS square bracket and the index number 5. which is a 6th student. And so we go ahead and name that Bill. So that is something that you've never ever seen before that I just wanted to point out. Feel free to pause the video at any time if you need a minute to think about it or look at it. Okay, let's move on. We go ahead, this string that we just created up here, we're just going to go ahead and capture the name. We just set it to Bill, so this should go ahead and grab Bill for us. See, look again, SSS square bracket 5 dot get name. Instead of set name, we set it to Bill. Now we're just going to go ahead and get it. So that should get quote Bill. But look what else we're doing. We're not just doing that, we're concatenating this, plussing Bill with whatever's at GGG index 5 and substring 7. So what is going to be there? Well, GGG has the cat sat on the mat. And substring starting at 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's going to give us this space sat on the mat. So it should now say Bill sat on a mat. And so right down here it says, see, str now equals Bill sat on the mat. Now, the reason is because, and you can look at page 408, right, for all of the string methods. It gets everything from that point all the way to the end of the string is what substring will do for you if you only have one item in the parentheses here. So again, this is number 7 right here, the space, and so it's going to grab everything from the space all the way to the end here. So Bill sat on the mat. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. And let's move down here. Okay, so the rest of this chapter here, there's only just a couple more lines here. There are a couple of alternative ways. I really don't like teaching this section, but I guess it's important to know because you might see this used in the future in different pieces of code or different textbooks that you look at. So I guess it is important, but sometimes this can confuse students. So there's more than one way to do this. See, look how they did it up here. In square bracket, and then they gave the name ABC. And look at what they did here. Int space AAA square bracket. Now either way will declare, will create basically a reference to an array of type integer, right? Either way. Now we didn't use the keyword new yet, so it actually didn't make anything in memory, but this either this way or that way, they're both exactly the same. I prefer doing it this way, but in the old days, it used to be written this way. So if you look at a lot of C code or C++ code, this is the way that I was taught at first when I learned C and C++, and they wrote it this way. And so, well, what you can do with that, because of this, one thing that makes things easier, kind of, is that you could go ahead and declare just integers and arrays of integers all on one line because you just went ahead and say int at the outset instead of int square bracket, right? And so, but again, I usually don't like to do things that way because it can be confusing, but it can be done that way. Let's see, instead it might look better to write this. Yeah, and so here what they're doing is they're doing the same exact thing again. They're making just one integer called BBB and two arrays of integer AAA and CCC. Again, this is the way to do it. This is the preferred way, in my opinion, to do it instead of doing it this way. But yeah, the old way is that way in C and C++. Okay, one last thing that's very, very important to notice is once an array is instantiated, its size cannot be changed. So make sure the array is large enough from the outset. That's right. So take a look at these these arrays right here. Once we set this DDD to size 10, even if you're like, wait, I needed 5 more. I needed it to be size 15. Too bad, you can't do that, right? Or any of these. Now later we're going to learn something else that will allow us to do it, but Regular standard arrays will not allow you to change the size of it once you've already instantiated it. Okay, well that's it for 9.4. Let's take a look at the homework questions just to make sure that you understand all of it. Declare and instantiate an array of 15 doubles and 20 strings. Notice it did not say initialize. So some of my students sometimes do all three of them, and it's like extra work they didn't need to do. So declare and instantiate. Number 2, what is an initializer list? That's easy. Next page. Question number 3. Use an initializer list to create the following arrays. Okay, so 5 test scores, 3 interest rates, and 2 strings, which are your first and last name. All right, so that should be pretty easy to do. Use an initializer list to do that. Question number 4, why is it better to use this form instead of that form when declaring an array variable? Okay, so that's just going back to talking about the difference between doing this and doing it this way, right? Okay, so yeah, that is the homework, and yeah, go ahead and do that and have that for me for Monday, and good luck on the show this weekend. All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.